Welcome to Breaking Through Britain's Innovation Barrier. I am Timandra Harkness. I'm chairing this session. I didn't produce it. If you like this session, Rob Lyons produced it. If you didn't like it, Rob Lyons produced it. So I can take no credit from putting together this excellent panel. So, starting over here on my far right, for once in this conference, this may conceivably be an accurate political description as well, I don't know. Dr. Nikos Sotirakopoulos, see, I've now said your name wrong, I even practiced this. Dr. Nikos Sotirakopoulos, who's a visiting fellow at the Ayn Rand Institute and an instructor at Ayn Rand University, and the author of Identity Politics and Tribalism, The New Culture Wars. So we'll be hearing from him first. Next, we shall come over here to my far left, if that's an accurate description, Duncan Cunningham. He is the UK and Ireland External Affairs Director of Philip Morris Limited. Nothing to do with the Morris minor car, disappointingly. I think it's more recreational plant-based products, which we may hear more about. Next, we'll come to my immediate left to Kevin McCullough, who is the founder of Plan. Enigmatic sounding. It's a consultancy and writes reports and interesting things. An innovation strategist and writer. In fact, he wrote something related to this session for CapX only this week. So if you like what he has to say and would like to read something similar on a page, you can go and look that up later. And finally, coming here to Mercy Muroki, who is a columnist for The Sun and also a former policy fellow to the Minister for Women and Equalities and the Business and Trade Secretary, which is surely the best short CV you're going to hear this weekend. So, Nikos, start us off with your 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. If you are to take away one point from what I'll say today, let it be this. Innovation matters. And it doesn't only matter for technology nerds or for policymakers or for abstract discussions in conferences. Innovation is important for each one of us. Any problem you have, any problem, can become immensely better with innovation. It can be a new discovery, it can be an app, a software, a new way of transportation, a new way of building things. So innovation is not a technology or an economy issue. Innovation is a life issue. And this means that in this fight for innovation, we all have a role to play. Many of us might not be innovators, but it doesn't matter. We can still play a role. And what we can do is we can make the culture more hospitable to innovation. We can boost the demand for innovation, the cultural and the political demand for innovation. Because at the moment, this demand is not high. We enjoy the final results, like the phones, the gadgets, but we don't understand what comes before these results come to our hands. So how can we fight this good fight for innovation? How can we defend innovation? Well, to defend it, first we need to understand where it comes from. And it doesn't come from technology, it doesn't come from government policies. Innovation is first and foremost based on some simple ideas. And the first idea is that we can know and understand the world. Because what is innovation at the end of the day? Innovation is we make the world more hospitable to our needs. We shape the world, we change the world, we master nature and the world so that it's more accommodating to our needs. And to do this, of course, means that we can understand the world, that we have our mind, our reasoning minds, that we can get the world. And to do this, we need one simple thing. We need freedom. We need to be free to think, to experiment, to make mistakes, free to innovate, and then to collaborate, to cooperate, and to produce, to create. So at the end of the day, this is the simple formula for innovation. The freedom to use our mind and the freedom to unleash our creativity. This is what has brought innovation. And the point to which the culture is open to these ideas, innovation is going to be there, because it's not that we have a lack of these brilliant minds. And if we understand this, we can understand why innovation has been stifled for some long time. Why it's not 10x what it could be. Because unfortunately, in the culture out there, our intellectuals and our opinion makers, they view the creative genius, the out-of-the-box thinker, we view them as a problem to be mitigated. See how the policymakers view someone like Elon Musk. They view him as this loose cannon who needs to be put in his place. The people who haven't created anything, they see an innovator and the first thing they think is, how can we stop him? And this should piss you off. Not because necessarily you might like Elon Musk, but because such an attack is not only an attack on Elon Musk, it's also an attack on you. Because whether we live in a culture which is hostile to innovation or a culture which is friendly to innovation can literally be the difference between life and death one moment. For you, for me, or for someone you love. So imagine 5 Elon Musks in the area of cancer research. Imagine 5 Mark Zuckerbergs in the area of life, of longevity. The sky is the limit then. And this is why, again, I will finish with the same line that I started, because I believe it. The fight for innovation, the fight to unleash the mind is literally a fight for our life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nikos. Duncan, take it away.
Thank you. So my name's Duncan, and as you kindly said, I'm the External Affairs Director for Philip Morris here in the UK. I started my career as a diplomat. You can make of that what you will. I felt I was doing something worthwhile. And then after a while, I fell into banking. So my decline, I guess, had started. That didn't last very long. The organization I worked for were very, very good. I was not so good. And then I ended up working for a big US defense firm. Again, make of that what you will. Defending democracy, there's always a way. After that, I joined the tobacco industry. And I've now been in this industry for 10 years, so a decade. And in that time, I am pleased to say we've seen a huge amount of innovation and a huge amount of change for the better. So when I was offered the chance to join Philip Morris, I was absolutely delighted because I'd always looked at them from the outside and been incredibly impressed by the very clear vision that the company had to take the world smoke-free, to create products that would do less harm for existing adult smokers and help create a smoke-free world. So I joined them, and it's our mission, both in the world and here in the UK, to help existing adult smokers switch to less harmful alternatives. So I guess the question is, how are we doing that? Well, there's been a lot of investment. There's been over $10.5 billion over the last decade. And what that's done is enable the production of products which take away the harms of conventional cigarettes. So instead of combustible cigarettes which burn tobacco, one of the main products that we produce actually heats tobacco and therefore reduces up to 95% less harmful and potentially harmful chemicals. What's interesting for me, having looked at this industry for the last 10 years, is actually how innovation has really helped smokers switch to less harmful alternatives. And when I think back to when I started, that was right at when, in the UK at least, plain packaging was starting to come in. And what was interesting about that was that it wasn't actually regulation which ended up accelerating the decline in the number of smokers in the UK. It was actually market forces and innovation, when vaping came along especially, that accelerated that pace of decline and switching people off combustible cigarettes onto the less harmful products. So I think this is a very exciting time. I think there's a huge opportunity for the 6.4 million adult smokers that are still left here in the UK. And I guess for us, the innovation that started with an idea, the idea that there must be a better way, it's exciting to be a part of that. But it still has challenges. And those challenges come from conversations with society, conversations with regulators, and conversations with people who don't necessarily want to buy into the change. So for us, there's a huge amount of work still to do, but I at least personally feel very positive about the journey we're on. And it's great to be able to have a conversation with people here today.
Thank you very much, Duncan. Be very interested to hear, in fact, what you think some of the challenges are, but we'll maybe come back to you and revisit that. Kevin, tell us about innovation.
Yes, so just starting with the fundamentals as I see them, I think innovation essentially improves productivity, and in turn productivity improves living standards. And both productivity and wages in the UK have pretty much flatlined over the last 15 odd years since the financial crisis. So to put it bluntly, if we want a pay rise, we need breakthrough innovation. And there's not a lot of it about, to be frank. If you look at the growth, there are a few areas like AI, obviously, life science, biosciences are looking promising, but in general, it's not looking like a very dynamic picture. And there are many well-rehearsed reasons for that. Not enough investment in R&D, too much regulation. Universities kind of more focused on right think than generating new knowledge. There's all those are well rehearsed. But what I'd like to, in my time, just to focus on a bit more are the kind of cultural restraints on innovation and maybe some mindsets that can lift us out of that sort of stasis. And those three mindsets are optimism, ambition, and experimentation. And I'm sure I'm not the first and I won't be the last to mention Elon Musk in this conversation. And I think he embodies those, for all his faults and his business faults, he embodies those three kind of mindsets. So starting off with optimism, to make progress, you've got to believe it's possible. And, it's been it's long been kind of cool to be pessimistic about the future. It's been sophisticated to be pessimistic, naive to be optimistic. That's been a cultural trait for many a decade. But I think what's new now is the elites are almost denying progress that has already happened. If you to believe many of the commentators and elites, we're just, if not more racist than we were before. The environment's only is getting worse. And just there's a narrative that we've made no real progress. So there's almost denying historical facts going on now. So we've first got to kind of have that positive attitude to the future and believe that it's that real transformative change is possible, because lots and lots of people have given up on that. And when it comes to Elon Musk, I'm sure many of you saw the amazing kind of landing of the heavy rocket into the chopstick embrace of the launch pad. What maybe less of you saw was he had a very good week the other week. He also had the launch of his robo-taxis and an update on his humanoid robots. And he laid out a vision of the future of society where we'd have more time on our hands through automation. His robo taxis would help save lives. There'd be less accidents, less injuries. And he actually used the term, it's going to be a glorious future. No one says that anymore. That just shows how that he's such an outlier when he's positive about the future. And his critics, apart from him endorsing Trump, the other thing that really roused the critics is that he thinks big, he thinks long term, and he's positive about the future. And that's seen as variously sales spin, guff, sort of naivety, weirdness, or just downright sinister, but it's or that big picture vision of the future stuff is seen as, in various ways, as very negative these days. So that's on optimism. On vision, you need more than optimism. You need vivid, distinct goals to aim for. backed by conviction. And the point about those visions is they motivate and steer teams of engineers or designers or whatever to reach that goal. And he paints very bold visions of the future. So I think his vision for SpaceX, his rocket company, is to become a multi-planetary society, that humans become a multi-planetary species, that we build cities on Mars and things like that. He might not reach that, but the whole point about visions is they set bold goals, and you might not reach them, but you achieve great things by those stretch goals. So that he's another embodiment of bold, distinct, inspiring visions. And then thirdly is experimentation. And you not only have an inspiration, that the famous Edison quote is, innovation is 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. And innovation is mainly lots and lots of experimentation, lots of failure. That failure normally happens behind closed doors of the lab, of the design studio. He broadcasts it to the whole public. He's had explosions in space, explosions on the rocket pad. So those amazing pictures of the rockets, reversing into the launch pad. That's on learning through lots and lots of failures that he's completely committed to. All that risk taking is very, very rare these days. So I guess no matter what you think of Elon Musk, I'm not a big fan of his politics. I'm not a big fan of some of his business practices or some of the content of his visions, to be frank. But we need more of that level of big thinking, of that ambition. And we need more alternative competing visions of the future, so we can all debate and decide what kind of future we want and start deciding how to make it happen.
Thank you very much. So, Mercy, are you going to give us an Elon Musk hat trick, or have you got something else up your sleeve?
No, I'm not. I might mention him actually, but I personally don't agree with much of his politics these days as well. But I'm going to talk about innovation more so from a policy landscape. My background is in policy, and actually I think there's lots of interesting things that government can do, and an interesting role government has to play in innovation. When you look at the Global Innovation Index, which is a sort of index that ranks countries based on their capacity for innovation and their success in innovation, the UK is in 5th place at the moment. It was in 4th place last year in last year's index. This, I feel, is lower than we should be. In 1st place is Switzerland, then Sweden, then the US, then Singapore. So clearly we are one of the big innovators in the world, but it's at risk. I think there's so much more we could be doing. And when I look at when I think about innovation in this country, and one of the sort of key things we can point to in recent times, I think the big one most people would remember is the vaccine, the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. Now, you don't have to agree with some of the politics around the vaccine and everything that came from that, but it's undeniable that it was a feat. It was developed in rapid time, and again, obviously, there's lots of politics around that, but it was a big innovation. It was a big innovation success, in my opinion, and there's lots of innovation as well, of course, in this country around things like gene sequencing and gene editing. One of the big ones for me, I think, really is in tech and AI. Many of you might have heard of DeepMind, Google DeepMind. DeepMind was actually a company that was founded in 2010 and then was later acquired by Google. And it's working on quite advanced AI. And one of the big breakthroughs that DeepMind has had over the last few years is managing to solve a problem that scientists had been struggling to solve for decades, which is to predict how proteins fold. There'll be scientists here who could explain this far better than I can, but protein folding, when you can understand how proteins fold, you can develop drugs more precisely. You can understand sort of diseases more precisely. And so the fact they've now managed to do that is completely going to revolutionize how we understand medicine, how we develop drugs, and it's actually been referred to as the biggest breakthrough since the discovery of DNA. Lots of stuff as well is happening in our big sort of university cities. They're massive innovation hubs. Lots of stuff with quantum computing, for example, which there's a company in Oxford that has just developed the first commercially available quantum computer, which again is something that's going to massively revolutionize the way we do not just computing actually, but anything that involves sort of processing information. It's going to massively revolutionize. I do have to disagree with some of the comments the panel have made about that legislation perhaps is not what triggers innovation, that there's, that government's not going to help innovation, because I actually do think there's a massive role for government. If you just look at what the government has done previously to incentivize innovation, to leverage innovation, sometimes perhaps to have put policies in place that have forced innovators to innovate. And one sector I would point to in particular is the green energy sector. Again, you don't have to agree with net zero, but the UK has become a wildly... We were the first country to put a net zero target into law, the first country to halve our emissions, first major economy to halve our emissions. And a lot of the reason why we are now 2023 was the greenest year on record, and we are now have 7 of the world's largest offshore wind farms, is because the government put these policies in place that meant that there's been massive amounts of private investment, there's been massive amounts of innovation in green tech, and that's why we're leading massively in that space as well. I think the same goes, you can say, for the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. The reason, we had a global pandemic, and of course there was a massive necessity there to do something. So sometimes I think innovators do need a push, and they need the financial incentives to innovate, and government, I think, has a role to play in that. The final point I'll make is we have a shortage of skills. There's a shortage of STEM skills. I don't think our education systems encourages innovation amongst young people. There are countries with far higher proportions of STEM graduates. Ours is, I think, less than 1 in 4 of our graduates are actually graduating from STEM subjects, which I think is quite dire, actually. There's too much social science. That's from somebody who did a social sciences degree, and not enough STEM. So final point, I think there's a role for government, but we also need more people to encourage more young people to actually become innovators.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.